We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkies. Welcome back to Deal Junkies. Oh my gosh. Dane, where did you come from?
Oh, baby. I was out for the holidays, but now we're home for the Januaries.
We got Trevor and Dane in the studio. I'm Gabe. Today, we want to brainstorm. We're going to do, what did you call it? We're just going to have like we're going to have a little think tank.
Yeah, a little brainstorm sesh.
So my mentor who trained me in real estate, he taught me that you always make more money out of town. And so I've been in real estate now for a while, and I was never ready to leave. I mean, I've left town. I've gone to other areas, but now I want to leave the state. I want to do stuff in other states, but I'm scared. I don't know if I'm scared, but I feel like we don't have what it takes yet to go to other states, but I see the value, and a lot of people are leaving. A lot of people are divesting from their assets in Oregon. They're going to places like Idaho, Texas for political reasons. They're going to places like Ohio and Midwest, Tennessee, places where Kansas. The middle states are more cash flow properties, whereas we make more equity on the coastal states. So I think that a really balanced portfolio, if you can take a nationwide look into different asset types and different markets, I think you can balance your portfolio better to where you get more cash flow and maybe even have the foundation to buy more buildings on the coastlines to where you make more equity. So that's where my brain is going. I just don't know how to do it. And I hear about people going other places, and even my partner who taught me that, to go out of town, he did just that. He sold me a couple of his buildings, and he 1031, and he went and bought a bunch of, I don't know if they're crappy houses, but they're like $30,000 houses in some market somewhere. Had to figure out how to manage them, but you buy a $30,000 house that rents for $900.
You're winning.
You're winning.
Yeah. I was talking to Alex at the meetup. You'd recognize him. But he just moved here from Midwest, and he buys houses for, it was like $80,000 that rent for $1,800 a house.
Do you guys know a guy named Noah? He's been texting me. He's one of Mike's contractor contacts. Anyway, he's kind of got, I'm going to give a shout out to Noah because he's kind of got me thinking about this. He's been sending me messages about how he's got the infrastructure and how he's bought a few deals in other states. And I think so it starts off with like, okay, if we're going to leave the state, why? Where are we going to go, and for what reason are we going to go? I always talk about this one investor who is really, really big, and I can't remember his name, but he buys a lot of MHP, mobile home parks, in the middle states, southern states, and then he owns a lot of multifamily on the east and west coast. And he just cash flows a ridiculous amount of money on the middle states. And he doesn't make a ton of cash flow on the coastlines, but it allows him to have the platform to go buy these big assets that go up over the course of 5, 10, 15 years, and then he gets these huge equity pops.
Does he syndicate them, or how does he?
I don't know exactly. I think ultimately once you get into big enough deals and you're trying to do something like that, you're definitely using investor cash. I don't know that there's anybody that scales that big that isn't using some form of fundraising, bringing equity in.
Or you're bringing it from a separate business that's probably not tied to real estate necessarily. I mean, sometimes it is, but a lot of the people who are actually just buying large complexes with their own money in Oregon, it's like, yeah, we just wanted a place to park our cash from, XYZ business that we were running. I mean, we were just talking about Gary Coe, who has like the largest towing company, and two of the largest towing companies in Oregon, and then runs the largest auction. Yeah. And he just he's an investor for sure now, but I'm sure at some point it was just like, I just need a place to put my money.
Well, it's weird to think that we happen to want to be real estate investors, and we're in a market where we've made a lot of money and it's done well for us, and maybe that wouldn't have happened somewhere else. But the thought that we just happen to be buying in our own market where we live, like when we became investors, for me anyway, I didn't just stop and go, oh, I want to do this, let me go find a market. I just immediately started buying in my own backyard because that's just what you do. I can drive there. I can look at it. I know what it is. And the biggest thing is really having management to be able to manage that property. And unfortunately, the vast majority of property management companies are really not good.
Yeah.
There are some that are amazing, and they do a great job when you can find them. I think so. If you can get into a market you really like and find really good management, you're off to the races.
Yeah. No, and back to the idea of kind of crafting the vision and saying, where would we go that was outside of Oregon and why? And it's not to say that we aren't going to still invest in Oregon, obviously, because we understand the Oregon markets.
Yeah,
really
we're not
well.
leaving because we're pissed.
There's
some people leaving for emotional reasons.
It's for growth.
Yeah.
It's just to be able to grow more. And I think a huge part of it in my mind, especially over the past year of being in acquisitions actively for Stack and trying to find us the right deals that fit our buy box for our portfolio in the direction that we wanted to go. And the goal in mind on the offset was to say, okay, let's do 50% heavy value add, 50% new construction. And then you start looking for deals, and man alive, the heavy value add is one, kind of hard to find in Oregon. I don't know what that is. I think part of it's regulations, frankly, that keep most complexes in better condition than they might be in another state. Really, like there's stuff in Oregon that makes it so that, you know, a landlord can't have an apartment without heat, or an apartment that has super, and you don't.
You can.
I mean, no, you totally can, but and like we've found those, but it's not nearly as common. Like there's no argument about that, and so that's part of it. And then the other part is the ones that like do need the heavy value add. They think that they just need a little bit of value add, and so it's priced as though there's just a little bit of value add to be done.
Explain to us what you mean by heavy value add versus light or medium.
Totally. So when we go look at a heavy value add complex, in my mind, is there's something structurally or wrong with the envelope. And so that the envelope being electrical, plumbing, sewer, roof, siding, foundation. Like those are the things where if those things need done, a lot of investors don't want to deal with that, right? Because those are the big ticket items.
The bones.
Yeah, it's the bones of the building.
Because it always costs more too.
It costs way more.
You open it, oh, we're doing one, like we were getting roof replaced on whatever, and they're like, oh, by the way, all your fascia is bad. I'm like, okay, I do that too. And they're like, oh,
all your what?
Fascia. Fascia?
Oh, you're talking about
Focaccia?
I thought fascia was like a muscle.
I love it, Brad.
You're talking about like the trim boards?
Yeah, the trim boards. So like all that was bad, and then they're like, oh, by the way, if we take this off, now
That's
we got
cheap, isn't it?
We got to do your gutters too, and then it's just like, oh, and then we got to do this and this, and they just keep adding more every change order, and then you go open the walls. They're like, okay, we're gonna do the electrical, and they're like, oh, by the way, this electrical actually runs farther and
totally
more every time.
Yeah, no, every time, and that's a huge part of why we are attracted to it, though, is because you can point out, hey, these things cost a lot and require a lot of work. And if the seller is willing to come to terms and say, yeah, you're right, like that stuff is all going to need to get done at some point. If you're the one to do it, then you're not the one who's going to be able to pay the price that I want to get paid, because it's going to cost you a ton of money. And then you're not going to put all that money into it if it's going to be worth less than what you've put into it, right?
So you've got to know a little bit about the market that you're in. And one example is I'm part of a partnership that's headquartered in LA. And when we first started buying up here, we go through an inspection and they go, Gabe, we got to make sure there's no termites. And I'm like, we're in Oregon. You don't have to worry about
There's
termites.
no bugs here.
What you got to worry about is water.
Yeah.
So like in California, you worry about bugs, and in Oregon, you worry about water, and every market's going to have its own nuances. We've talked to Mr. Cowie when we did our interview. He talked about buying, in Michigan or somewhere.
And like Dakotas or
somewhere in the Dakotas, and the foundations were made out of clay.
Yeah.
And they fall apart. It's like,
Montana.
how would we know that until we get to a market and go like, oh, you build your foundation? Like, you would think that there's sort of a playbook by now in the year 2025 where buildings are sort of built. I guess by now a brand new building across the country is probably pretty similar. There's probably a standardized building code. But if you go back just 50 years, like there's 100 different ways to build a building. You don't know if the building's going to fall over. You don't know if the foundation's bad. You don't know what. I guess that's really what we're trying to say is The reason why it's a little bit scary is you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so to get in there and do the due diligence. So number one, if we're going to leave, we have the gut instinct. We need to leave the state.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
So why you want to go into other states to increase cash flow? That's what you're thinking?
I think that I want to increase deal flow.
Okay.
And cash flow. And I want to balance the portfolio better.
Like by diversifying into other markets?
Yeah. Correct. And other asset types.
What do you mean by other asset types?
So we're very heavy in multifamily now.
Yeah.
We're dipping our toe in self-storage, but I want to do mobile home park.
Okay.
I really want to buy mobile home parks, and I think that there are markets where we can still do okay in mobile home parks.
Do you want to put that out into the?
I just did.
Yeah. So
I want to go to other states. I want to own other asset types.
Do you want to just take acquisitions into other states, or you want to take management into other states and other companies into other states?
Well, it depends. I would say that at first we probably would need to identify the markets and the asset types we want to go into and make sure that what I'm thinking is rather than here we've developed a buy box and now we're like trying to filter a limited number of deals in through our buy box into our pipeline, and and it's a trickle. We're getting deals, but it's not at the pace we want to be getting deals. And so to me, if you can funnel a lot more deals through our buy box and filter them, you'll just get a lot more deals. And so what were you asking me? Management. So I think that first we have to identify the reason why we want to leave the state. Then we have to identify which markets around the country might fit our current buy box better and how we may want to then expand our buy box a little bit based on asset type. From there, once we identify those markets, I think we need to figure out how to build infrastructure, meaning we need to find good property managers, contractors, contacts, people we can hire in those markets to watch over our buildings. And I think that once if you pick a market, and I've watched other buyers do this, they're really zoned in on where they live, just like we are today. And then they're like, let's go find another place. And they pick a place that's either, whatever. Right now, my portfolio is like a 2 to 2.5 hour drive from me in any direction. But then my partners have we'll go anywhere where it's like a 2-hour flight. They want to be somewhat close, but they're still an airplane away.
Direct flight.
Yeah, direct flight, 2 hours to get there, right?
Sure.
So it's just a different metric. It's like, well, instead of hopping in the car, I hop on an airplane or whatever, right? So then once we've identified which states we might go to and maybe we build some infrastructure, what I've seen is you pick a couple of markets and then you might have a lot of success in one and not in others. And if you started to have, let's just say that, for example, we started buying in Salt Lake City, Utah. And we started buying deals there. We love the market. We do really good. We get a couple of big pops, and we're thinking man, we love it there. More deals are filling up in our pipeline now in Utah than they are in Oregon, right? And then at some point you have enough infrastructure there where you go, well, now let's take the management company there. Let's take the construction company there. I think it starts by seeding it with buildings and then growing that to the point where you have enough infrastructure to bring your own people in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You have the scale to make it make sense to bring infrastructure.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
You're thinking there's not enough deals in Oregon to do what we want to do, is why.
That's not really, I don't know if that's where my head is at. I mean, I think there is, but I'm also thinking that our portfolio is going to be big enough to where if we were only in Oregon, it wouldn't be a very wise investment decision for us to be so consolidated into
because
one
rules
market.
and regulations change and
Markets change, population change, wage growth change, climate change, all the different things that can happen. I'm not saying I don't like Oregon. I love buying in Oregon, and I'll continue to buy in Oregon, like Dane was saying. What I'm starting to feel instinctually is that we're missing out on business in other markets because we're so concentrated on Oregon.
I think to your point too, we've spent so much time. I mean, now when a deal pops on the market, 90% of the time, Gabe, pointing at Gabe, knows who owns it, when the last time it sold was, what it sold for, what it's probably worth now. It's not that you don't, you want to know your market that well, but at some point it's that might not be enough deals.
You know what's funny?
I disagree.
What do you disagree about?
So I think there's so many deals in Oregon that like it's getting almost shiny object syndrome to go elsewhere versus building the lead funnels here still. Like we're still missing out on so many deals.
Oh, sure we are. Yeah. I agree there's enough deals for us here to do.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then the thought is if you want to go into other asset classes, why would we not just partner with the people who know the asset class here where we have other things and then bring them into the fold to help learn?
Okay.
I don't know.
So maybe you're saying start with mobile home park in Oregon.
Maybe.
And then once
whatever.
we know it really well, go somewhere else.
Yeah, because I still think we're not doing all of the things to bring the leads.
The people that I know that know MHP are invested in other states.
Yeah.
They didn't buy in Oregon. I have multiple contacts who would partner with us on MHP that wouldn't want to buy in Oregon. Okay. Cap rates are too low.
I was going to say, I don't see a reason to do MHP in Oregon. If we weren't already doing multifamily, but at this point with where cap rates are at, MHP serves the same purpose as multifamily does for us here at least. And so if we were to go to another state, it's like, okay, we want cash flow. We want heavy value add plays. Like we want good deals in kind of rural markets.
Would you raise money right away for those deals, or you would buy them just us for?
I think we would start with just
to
us.
learn the market and take on the risk.
And the other thing is too, like I want to take SMI into managing MHP in Oregon, so that as we go to other states, we know it better. But like, I would want to manage it here, but I don't necessarily know that I'd want to own it here unless we just found a deal. I would look at a deal that makes sense. It's just I think there are better deals elsewhere. It's funny. Investors, you guys have done this. You've left the state, you've gone to Maui, you've gone to Florida, you've gone wherever, and gone to these masterminds and talked to investors. And when you tell them that you buy in Oregon, they start laughing at you.
They're rattled.
They're like, that's funny. We will buy anywhere on the globe except for Oregon. And we're like, oh, but we do good in Oregon. It's like we know our market, and actually that's a benefit to us to sort of have a black eye in some respects, because we don't have a lot of outside competition right now, because we do have strict regulation and things that people in politics that people don't like, investors don't like. So I think there are some advantages to us to not have as much competition. I also think that there are people that are selling their stuff in Oregon. They're doing it for political reasons, and maybe they're just running their mouth when they say they're doing better, but they're taking their money and they're moving it out of state, and they are making more money. Now, they're making more cash flow.
Correct.
And so everybody sees things different. And some people say, well, who cares about the equity? Well, if you're never going to sell or you're never going to refi, equity doesn't mean anything to you, because it's just a number on a piece of paper. Mm-hmm. Whereas we try to work our equity as hard as we can to grow it into more buildings and more cash flow, right? So that isn't always the case. But a lot of people just think, how much money goes into my bank account every month? That is my profit. And currently our portfolio does not generate tons of cash flow. We just get our name on buildings. They go up in value. Eventually, we tap that equity. Like, we're never going to live the life we want to live on the cash flow. I mean, maybe one day. The cash flow does go up eventually, but by the time we get the cash flow we want in Oregon, we refi.
Yeah.
We reset the ROE metric, and we either sell in 1031 or we refi and pull the cash out so that it resets.
Yeah.
So you're really never, in my mind, at least on the coastlines, you're never getting to the point. I mean, you might live like a pauper for the rest of your life and not have any cash in your pocket and just, drive a Prius with 200,000 miles the rest of your life and eat Chipotle. That's cool. And then one day when you're like 70, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I have $1 billion in equity. And you go tap it, and then what do? You're like, oh, I'm old, and now I got all this money, and now what? Like, I think we should focus on having enough money now to do the things that we want to do while we're young.
We just had our quarterly meeting where we talked about this, and you two right here, me and Mark, were saying, let's figure out how to increase cash flow, and you guys were like, nah.
I said yes. Let's figure out how to increase cash flow from real estate. You guys said that we should go start some stinking plumbing company. That was my idea. My bad. Okay, we can talk about that. But you guys were saying we should figure out how to increase it from businesses, and I was saying this in the meeting, was that if we want to do that, let's do it through real estate. That's what we do already.
The takeaway from that meeting was we sat down and talked about what are we good at, and what do we have the most fun doing, which is usually the same thing. We are good at buying buildings, and we have the most fun at buying buildings. And so rather than, to me, shiny object is let's go start a plumbing company to make more cash to be able to buy buildings. You hear people say this all the time. They're like, Gabe, I want to invest, but first I'm going to figure out a way to make $250,000 a year, and I'm going to save up $100,000, and I'm going to do ABC so that I have enough money to become an investor. I think that's backwards. To me, that sounds backwards. To me, if you're going to be an investor, and from right now, find a way to make what it is you want to put into your life and do it through investing, not through, I'm going to go off and do 5 other things so that I can become an investor.
I totally agree. From somebody who that's what they did, but I want to clarify that's so specific to real estate. And so the way you can do it in real estate is by, 1, financing structures, and then 2, creating a business within real estate that ends up translating into you getting to invest into more stuff. You can't do it with the stock market, right? You're not like creatively structured. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's stuff that you can do, but it's so much less tangible and riskier in one man's opinion to do it with that type of asset. But with real estate specifically, yes, I agree. There's no reason to go and start a bit. It's okay if you want to make $250,000 starting a business in cash flow and then make the value of the business $1 million. Why not just make the value of the business $20 million? If your goal is to be able to build businesses, then that's what you should be doing. If you're going to learn how to do that really well, then just do the business thing. Because at the end of the day, it's money. You're just making money doing something. So if we want to do it with real estate in 5 years, I see no reason to say, let's start learning how to build businesses that have nothing to do with the thing that we actually want to do. And then 5 years from now, we might have enough money to do the thing that we want to do, which is what you're saying. It's just backwards. That's not, it doesn't make sense to me.
It's becoming very intentional about what it is we enjoy doing and what we're good at, and using that. You've been talking, Trevor, a lot lately about bottlenecks. Like, let's find the one bottleneck. The one bottleneck might very well be that we own other businesses besides our company that buys assets.
Yeah,
but we do it because we need money. And this is the question you ask. Like, if I was generating enough money from my real estate portfolio to not have to run these businesses, would I stop running the businesses and go just do real estate? And I think that most of us would agree, yes, that's what we would do, right? So then everything is a means to an end. Now, we are lucky because we have real estate related companies. We're brokers, we're developers, we're managers, we're doing all the things that are related. And some of that has a synergistic effect to where we get to do more deals and see more deals and have more street cred because we have branding and we're market experts and all the other stuff. Like, it helps. It does not hurt for me when I go buy a building to tell the seller that I own SMI. That helps me. It helps my credibility, right? So I see how it plays in, but still you get back to just the very beginning. If you said, what do I want to do to go make my money? And if you wanted to make your money as an investor, how do you build your portfolio in such a manner to where it generates for you all of the things that you want? It gives you the freedom of time, meaning you're not out fixing toilets yourself. You have good property management and asset management in place. It gives you the tax benefits that you're looking for, where you're getting all of the write-offs, you're getting all of the depreciation, you're getting cash flow, where you're making enough cash to have a base to live the life you want to live and to go out and buy more deals off of your real estate, and you're making the appreciation because you've built your portfolio in such a way to where you do get equity pops to where you're tapping. You may only be making a couple grand a month on that property, but then you get to go tap it for $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, whatever, every 5 to 10 years and go pull that money out. Like, there is a way, if this is and Logan taught me this, is if you just stop everything else you're doing and focus only on your portfolio, it changes everything, because you start to look at the world from a different perspective and you go, I need my portfolio to give me all of these things. And that will now be the guiding light for which deals you buy and whether or not you're going to stay in Oregon or leave the state. My gut, I could be wrong, I'm not a spreadsheet guy, my gut says that we are not going to be able to accomplish all the things we want to accomplish in life with our portfolio until we go out of state.
I like that. Like, I would prefer to do that and build cash flow from buying deals, because I would rather do that than help other people buy deals. But
which is what we currently do. Yeah.
It's one way to make money now, though. You don't have the portfolio. At some point, I mean, maybe that, it changes.
Well, so would we be doing it through like fees in those places?
You can. That's one way.
Or through the cash flow.
Yeah, syndication is one way to do it, through sponsorship fees. But I think you're also looking to buy real estate that cash flows. I mean, when you're bringing on investors, what you're trying to do is you're trying to build a steady income stream for them. And so investors are not, like people that are passive investors, LPs, limited partners, they don't want to be cowboys like us and go out and be like, oh my God, we have a $100,000 capital call this month. Like, oops, we bought a building and it's fallen over and we got to go spend a bunch of money on it. Like they want to say, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to take a ton of risk. I don't want to make 1% in my savings account. So I'm going to give you my $250,000 and I want you to go make me 8 or 10% or whatever you're going to make me. And I don't want to think about it. Send me a report every month or every quarter. Tell me what's going on. And like, I want to see my cash flow gradually go up over time. And I want to see my 250 grow into 500K in a few years. And I want you to give me my money back and we'll talk about doing another deal. We're out saying we want to go buy a deal. And if we're putting 250 into it, we want to turn it into $2 million in a year. And we're trying to take on huge risk where we could go in and maybe the building, maybe we have to spend a lot more on it. Maybe we don't hit our model or whatever, but they've got a lot bigger reward metrics to them. But with reward usually comes a lot more risk. And so as operators, we're willing to take risk with our own money, because if we lose it, we'll go make it again. But when we take other people's money, we treat that money a lot different than we treat our own money, because it's other people's money. And we don't want to be assholes running around losing other people's money, because that doesn't go anywhere. That doesn't help.
Me.
So you always want to make sure, like when you're taking investor money, like these deals have to be like almost a sure bet. Like they're not rolling the dice the same way we're doing in some of the other moves that we're making.
So do you think within a year we can hit those cash flow goals, or like what is that?
I don't think like that.
Okay.
I don't think about what can we do in a year and how many doors.
Just start
and
doing.
What I'm thinking, my I work different than your brain works. My brain just says that I can see the writing on the wall, that as we go, our superpower is not in building and buying. I mean, maybe we can build and buy businesses. I do it. I have a lot of fun doing it, but it takes a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I spend a lot more time on my businesses than I do on my buildings.
We're best at buying deals.
That's what I think if you stack us up against other people,
mm-hmm.
I would say if you said like, what do we do better? Like if you say, do we do business better? I mean, maybe in some ways we're as good or maybe even better than some business operators, but we're not phenoms. Us. Well, I think you guys are doing
great.
Learning.
We're pretty darn good.
I think you're doing really good for somebody in your 20s. I think you're doing an amazing job. Especially with your social media presence and all the stuff that you do. I think we can excel and we can be, let's say, slightly better than average when it comes to being business operators. But I think when it comes to being people who acquire real estate assets and operate real estate assets, I think we can be leaps and bounds above average. And so...
All right, let's shut down everything we're doing and do that.
At some point, that may happen.
How do you determine when that point is?
When you have all the things you need from your buildings, and you go, "Why am I screwing around with this other thing anymore? I don't need to anymore."
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think it's a matter of shutting anything down. I think it's a matter of saying, "Okay, what do I do best, and what do I need to get somebody else to do?"
I've watched one group, one of the big clients that I have. I've watched them. They started off as a development company. They were doing fee building for other people. They did a great job. They built a great construction company, and then they decided, well, hey, we're building these apartments for other people. Why don't we build some for ourselves? They started building some for themselves, and then building their own apartments helped give them the platform to grow their business. And they did more fee building, and they did more building for themselves, and it had a really nice synergy because when you're not picking up as many third-party contracts, well, we're going to go over here and build ourselves a 100-unit complex. You can keep your staff busy all the time. They ended up building a company that did $400 million a year, which is pretty big for a construction company. They had over 200 employees, and once they got to the point where they were like, we can actually go out nationwide and we can buy these assets already built brand new for less than we can build them for. So we have a development company here. If we wanted to build, we could. But rather than like what we've been talking about, let's leave and go to other states and build, they just recognized we build for X amount of foot here in our home market. We can go over here to this other market and buy the same product in a market that has fundamentals that we like, and we can buy it for less than what we could build it for. Why would we waste our time to go build it? Let's just raise some money and go buy it. And so they ended up selling their development company to their employees. They became an ESOP or whatever it's called. They sit on the board. They still have the big construction company, development company, but now they're a syndicator. They raise capital and they go out and they picked 10 markets around the United States that had everything they were looking for with the metrics they were trying to hit. They expanded their buy box and they went to those markets. They hired some people that were really smart, and they get on airplanes and they fly around all week and buy real estate.
It's so sick. That gets me so fired up.
I mean, that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we're going to do. So then the question is, what kind of real estate? Now for them, they ended up in typically $50 million plus brand new multifamily. It's a very specific buy box.
We need to figure out on those deals how you pencil them better, because right now how we pencil them with IRRs and everything hitting returns, like we're not writing in like depreciation and like all of this stuff.
Well, IRR should have depreciation.
It should.
It's the sexiest part of real estate.
Yes, it should. My question for you too, wasn't accelerated depreciation going away, or what was the change?
It was going to go, bonus depreciation was going to go away with Trump's tax cuts, but now Trump's back in office. So
it's coming back, baby.
How did that work exactly? Because normally you can take it. Oh, okay. Because could you always accelerate to the?
You can always accelerate with cost segregation.
Okay, so that was still going to be a thing, and you could accelerate
but there's
like 5 years.
We should have a CPA on the show sometime and sit and talk to him about this stuff. I truly don't understand, but the way I do understand is that like maybe you didn't have to go through the same cost segregation study to get some of that bonus. Like you could accelerate the depreciation. So for people listening, we'll do a whole episode on depreciation one day. It's my favorite part of real estate. Nobody talks about depreciation. Nobody cares. Nobody knows what it is. Some people know what it is, but the reality is in real estate, if you're a real estate professional, you can go out and make millions of dollars and not pay taxes. This is the only industry, the only profession you can have in the United States where you can get rich making money off of real estate and not pay taxes because you have depreciation. It's a fake loss. The IRS says your building is going down in value over the next, it's either 27 and a half years on residential or 39 years on commercial. And they just say, in 39 years, your building's going to be worth zero. So take the value of it, divide it by 39, and it's going to drop in value that much every year. When in actuality, your building is going up in value and you're cash flowing on it, paying your loan down and doing all the other stuff. So you make money on that building and then you don't have to pay taxes. Like if you've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and everybody listening should, it's the most important book you'll ever read. It talks about how the rich they're no smarter than anybody else. They just play by a different set of rules. And the rules they're talking about is the tax code. That is the important part. You are not going to build wealth and get rich and do the things you want to do if every time you turn around, Uncle Sam is dipping his hand in your back pocket and taking your money. Depreciation is one of the ways where, it's like half the battle. They say half the battle is making the money, half the battle is keeping the money. Well, when you think about your expenses, everybody thinks about like, oh, what car do I drive? What house do I own? Blah, blah, blah. No, your biggest expense is taxes. It's your biggest expense. If you could eliminate your biggest expense, would you be able to build more wealth? Maybe.
I think on some of the deals too, I underwrite them too conservatively, and then we're missing out.
Well,
but you don't.
Sounds like a personal problem.
Yeah, well, because if you think about like if like the difference in like 5 years or whatever, if I'm like this unit will rent for whatever 1,500 versus 1,600 in performance, and then we'll exit a 6 cap versus a 5.75 cap, like that drastically swings.
Somebody called me yesterday. They say, "Hey, Gabe, you want to partner on this deal?" I said, "I don't know. Send it to Trevor. If Trevor says we're doing the deal, I'll do the deal with you. I'll sign on it." Because I know you're more conservative than I am. And there's a reason we need to have a partnership with somebody that's conservative, because otherwise I'm just going to take us into every deal and some of them aren't going to be good. So
yeah,
it's
Trevor's
good.
The most conservative. Mark and I are pretty tied, and then you're probably the least conservative.
It's partially just because I have a base, and so I can run around and do stuff you guys maybe can't do, because if I lose, it's not
walk around and do stuff.
Well, yeah. Very slowly. I don't want to get my heart rate over 100.
No reason to say that. There's just no reason. It just wasn't very nice. The year of empathy.
Trevor's trying to get me to build my cardiovascular system. He wants me to be able to run, so he has to make fun of me.
That's
Did I say I was running around and you said I was walking around?
Yeah.
Strolling.
Jaunt.
I'll be jogging pretty soon. Okay, so leaving the state. So how do you decide whether or not you should leave or not? A lot of folks, by the way, even our listeners, are thinking about how they can make cash flow. I mean, most people, when they get into real estate, that's the first thing they think of is, how do I make, they're like, oh, Gabe, we don't want to hear about depreciation. We don't want to hear about all your rich dad, poor dad stuff. We just want to make more money. That's what people want, because they're like, I don't have enough money right now. When you don't have enough money right now, that's all you can think about. Until we get past that, then your brain can expand and we can think about some other things. But right now, I don't have enough money. It's like, who cares how, if I could become a billionaire, I still drive a 200,000 mile Prius.
150.
Oh, I had to get back at him for the walking. So cash flow is what people are looking for. So they want to know. They don't want to know, how do you go make $10 million? They want to know, how do I add $1,000 a month passive income to my balance sheet so that I can start to eliminate some of the pressure on me to go work my 9 to 5 or go run my business or do the things I do, so that I can start to build up something that takes care of me, where my money is now working for me instead of me working for my money. And the way to do that, if you're just looking for cash flow, is to go into markets where you can buy something. I have a friend, he lives in the Philippines, I think, and he owns a bunch of dating websites and stuff, and he makes his money. He's kind of a tech guy, and this is what he does. He geeks out all night long, and he sits on a laptop, and he buys houses on the internet. Like, he's bidding, like eBay, like the way you go bid on whatever on eBay, but it's not eBay. It's like a house eBay.
Yeah.
And he's buying houses for like $4,000 to $8,000 a piece. And he's buying them all the time, and he just pays cash. And then he'll fly to the United States. He'll buy like 10 of them, and he'll fly to the United States, and he'll go figure out what's going on with them, hire some contractors, rent them out, and they're paid off. Like, he owns it free and clear, and he just owns all these little houses all over the place.
That's what we should do.
Well,
no.
It's a pure cash flow play. Yeah. But I mean, for somebody that's just getting in, you may want to do that. You may not want to do that, but I mean, imagine how you would look at life differently if you had $25,000 a month coming in passive income. Maybe it's in 1, 2, 3 markets in the Midwest, and you own, 20 houses or 30 houses or something like that. I mean, when you think about buying a house, like, we all think like, oh, you're going to spend $300-400 grand. Like, literally, you can go buy 10 houses for $300 grand in America, in the United States. I mean, come on now.
Well, that's what Tristan was telling us about, because he was buying whatever for 10 grand, some of that stuff, but it didn't seem worth it. And everyone that we've talked to, well, not maybe you, but everyone I've talked to that's done it, like Gabe Hamill and all them, they were like, I wouldn't do it again. Like,
the way I think you do it is you buy
really big apartment
portfolio. Treat it like an apartment complex, but let's go to a town and let's buy a portfolio of somebody that's already done this and they've stacked up 50 houses. Let's buy all 50 houses and hire a management company to manage it like it's an apartment complex. If we could go buy a 50-unit apartment complex at $30 grand a door, would you do it?
I don't know. I'd have to look at it.
Too conservative. With $900 rents? $800 rent?
That sounds pretty good so far, but I don't know. I gotta look at it. I like going to other markets too, because now it forces us to not be there trying to broker the deals. It's getting the brokers to do it for us more so.
And so going back to what my mentor taught me, the reason why he told me you'd make more money out of town is you'll look at that market more objectively. We talked about this with Matt Cox. Like, you'll look at a market and you will you won't hold against it what some of the locals will hold against it. You might make a few mistakes just because you're not used to the place or whatever, but the reality is you'll look at it and you'll go like, you don't have any bad memories or experiences there. It's just like, oh wow, you go to whenever I go into a new town where I'm going to buy stuff, which I've only invested so far in Oregon and Washington. But when I go into the town, it's interesting because I look at things in a different way. I study where the school is and the grocery store, and I look up to see how much people make, and I'm interested. I have a I have an interest, like it piques my interest. It gets the juices flowing to try to figure out what happens there. What do people do there? Where's the main income stream? Like it's a fun little exercise. When I drive around and look at properties in my hometown, I don't think about any of that because I live here, and then I might miss something because I'm not thinking about it. So I think you just be more objective about your purchases when you go out of town. When we start to identify markets and you go like, okay, we're going to go out of state, which we will at some point. Now we're going to go like, well, why would we go to Corpus Christi, Texas instead of Houston? Why would we go to Atlanta instead of Nashville? Like, I mean, we're going to start looking at things a little different. And up till now, my brain couldn't handle it. I couldn't be a big enough thinker to think like that, but I've been exposed to enough big thinkers that have done stuff nationally to where it's like, this is really no different than what we're doing now. We had to learn where, Eugene, Oregon was, and where Sweet Home is, and where Roseburg is, and where Astoria is. Well, we did it in Oregon. Now we know where everywhere in Oregon is, and we understand the state really well. Well, why can't we understand every state that way?
Mm-hmm.
So when do we start doing this?
I want to do it right now. Now.
Why didn't you talk about this at the quarterly meeting, guys?
I did. We did. You shut us down. What do you mean?
We got to get on the podcast before my brain starts to work.
Trevor's got short-term memory loss. No, he certainly
we
talked
didn't
about
talk.
this. You brought this up at the meeting.
Did we talk about leaving the state
yes,
too? Okay.
You brought this
All
up at the meeting. Yeah.
So that's how my memory is. We brought this up on Monday and it's Friday, and I don't even remember. I'm on the same soapbox I was on 4 days ago.
I don't remember.
Trevor doesn't even remember me.
You didn't talk about it for that long, but you mentioned it.
Okay.
That was the start of it when we started talking about cash flow. You said you'd rather just go out of state to get cash flow instead of starting.
I keep telling you guys, say this stuff with your chest. Say it loud.
I'm yelling it now. The listeners are angry about it.
Trevor has a hard time hearing.
Yeah. No, Trevor has a hard time listening. He hears so much stuff, and then it's just gone.
I'm a good listener.
It's gone.
He says he's a good listener.
It's insane. No, I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't start sooner rather than later. I think in the next quarter, the goal, and I've done this in the past just as an exercise when we did look at other markets, because we did this like a year and a half ago too, but we needed to build out our team and our systems better here before it really made sense to. And so when we were looking at doing it in the past, it was like that we were just being gunslingers. But
so I'll help you out. You don't have to think about this whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea. I'm going to tell you right now it's a good idea, and we're going to do it. So you can skip past that part, and you don't have to give any brain power towards it.
I like
now.
I heard action is the highest form of intelligence.
Yeah, I think I'm misquoting that. I think it says it's the only real measure of intelligence is the way Napoleon Hill says it. But it's the same.
Better.
That's even better.
Yeah.
So we can sit and think and pretend that we're smart guys, but until we do anything, we're not. It's not.
We're just
anything.
philosophers.
We're just philosophers. So we're not going to be philosophers. We're going to be deal junkies. We're going to go do these deals. Now, what we need to find out is why we're leaving. Mm-hmm. We're not leaving. Why we're expanding, and which markets we're going to expand into, and into which asset types, and how we're going to build that infrastructure. So it's going to start with a list of potential markets that we want to go into where the deals will more closely fit our buy box that we're having a harder time finding deals here. And now we're just going to expand our footprint, and we're going to hire a good management company in that market. And maybe we'll interview some of them and decide if it's a good market to go into based on infrastructure.
Do you think our track record's impressive enough to get people on board with our vision to help us in that market? It is, right?
What people?
I mean, I'm just thinking brokers probably is the first.
Of course.
Point.
Totally.
No problem.
Of course.
Yeah.
They love out-of-state buyers. They can slam us into a deal that everybody else is like, I'm not doing that deal.
It's true. It's true.
When I went to Florida for that thing, I can't remember what it was, but it was all the brokers that.
Yeah.
There was a bunch of brokers doing deals across the nation, like creative deals, and they were
Society of
exchange counselors or something.
Exchange
SEC, Society of Exchange.
Yeah, that was a cool meeting, wasn't it?
It was cool to see because they were doing they were just trading actively random stuff across, and they everyone goes around and says what they do. I'm like, I buy in Oregon, and they all laughed because they're like, you can't only do deals in one state. But the funny part was I had more deals than
they did.
Half the room. I was like, because then they're like, okay, like what are you doing? I was like, this, and this, and they're like, what?
Oh,
because they were like, some of them were like trading houses like across like $100,000 pieces, and then some dudes were doing like, there was one dude in there who had built like $50 million freezer facilities. Like,
oh,
he was doing like
big industrial builds.
Builds. Like there was people doing crazy, and then just people trading. It was weird.
That's how I met Logan. Logan was on the he was part of a group called the NCE. I think they were the National Council of Exchangers. And it sounds like it's for people who want to do 1031s, but it's actually for people who wanted to swap real estate back and forth with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were trading grain silos too, some of these dudes, and like
that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very creative thinking. I mean, it's pretty
cool.
much you buy mine, I buy yours, whatever.
Well, dude, so once it got interesting, they started doing like 3, 4, 5-way trades. And then they were trading a lot of notes too, is what they were doing. So they were trading like development notes for like just whatever across the nation.
So why don't we go trade a couple of our Oregon assets that are building good appreciation for a couple
hoarders.
of cash flow?
I don't think we need to.
I don't know that that's the best plan either.
I thought they were all scatterbrained half the time and just like.
That's typical of people like us. Entrepreneurs are we have shiny object syndrome. We keep working on it all the time. We talk about it all the time. We want to run in every direction. Every single opportunity we see, we want to take it.
Yeah.
And so there's that lesson again. Like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And there are so many different ways to succeed. And this is what Trevor's been hounding us on, is to find the one thing that we should focus on. The one thing we should focus on is buying deals all the time in multiple states.
I like that.
So where's our next state? And that's up for you guys to figure out.
I was going to say, I've done the preliminary work for that. I think we make a decision end of January and just say, let's shoot it.
Well, I think what you have to do is you have to go trend, okay, where is there enough resources to do these? Where is there enough deal volume? Where can you achieve the cash flow? And then where are you looking for upside too? So you have to make sure population trends are in the correct direction.
Depends on.
You have to look at the history of population trends in markets to then make a guess to which one.
It depends on leverage. If we're going to park cash, or if we're going to raise money, or if we're going to try to do highly levered deals where they have to get an equity pop down the road to be able to pay them off, and sort of. I mean, you just have to bake in.
It sounds like we want a cash flowing deal, so it's like we're trying to go to a market where we're buying 8 to 10 caps with 6% debt.
I think that, I've sent you a couple deals recently where I'm like, what do you think of this? And you liked them, and there were deals where I was iffy on them. I think
Are you talking about the retail thing?
Yeah, getting into talking about different asset types and stuff. Yeah. I think that we can find deals 10 times better than that in an asset type we already understand, and just go to a different market. Mm-hmm. I think we can go buy multifamily, MHP, self-storage, and we can go pick, maybe we start with 2 or 3 additional markets that we look at. We go figure out who our management company is going to be.
Maybe we go somewhere where we already know someone there.
Yeah. Well, that's what this Noah guy, he's like, hey, we got to have lunch because I'm going to tell you about this market I go to. He already has infrastructure.
Yeah.
He's buying smaller deals than what we normally buy, but
buy bigger
he's
deals.
making a ton of cash flow, and he's one of these that are like laughing at, why would you buy anything in Oregon when you can make so much money out of town?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's the same with Jesse Wynn on the East Coast, like in Delaware.
Oh my goodness.
It's kind of a crazy market because they still buy stuff for $80,000, like.
And that's 3 times as much as you pay in other states.
And that's East Coast, and it's a crazy spread market by market over there too. It's so diverse for the prices, because they'll have other stuff that's in their market, like around the corner, same as us here, and then they go 10 miles their way, and then it's 80 grand.
Yeah, we live in a market here where it is, for the West Coast, we're the most affordable market, but we live in a market where we have relatively low wage growth. Currently, we have very high home prices, and the rents are flat or going down, and so the metrics are not there for an investor.
Yeah, we should go to, what market are they in Delaware? Do you remember? Oh, Wilmington.
Delaware? Yeah.
Wilmington, Delaware.
Yeah, and they want to go into the commercial space, and their whole company right now, all they do is find deals. Like, that's all their whole company is.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, so then we can and they want to go
because they're wholesaling.
Yeah. Yeah. And they want to go into commercial, and they have the whole their construction company wouldn't be big enough for those, but yeah.
So what do you need once you get there? Once you buy a deal there, or once you're buying a deal there?
So we go buy over there. We go buy what, a $3 to $6 million deal probably for the first deal size.
I think you don't go too big and you don't go too small.
Yeah.
You pick something right in the middle.
2 to 6.
I would say a couple $1 million deal.
Yeah. Okay, so like a $3 million.
Something that doesn't wipe us out if we totally screw it up.
2 would be a hard sell.
Too small?
Yeah, I mean, you just but
$2 million there, you
That's
can.
True.
I mean, you're buying a 40 unit or something. I mean, that's pretty big.
That's true. Yeah, maybe that then. I mean, we just have to look at it, but I think we just pick the market. I don't even know that. I think that if we do what you're saying, where we go to a market where we already know somebody, it kind of not defeats the purpose, but it's like the idea is that we're going somewhere else because we like the market, not because we already know somebody there. And if we like the market, then the point of going out of market is to build the systems that we need to build to go into any market. Where it's like, no, we don't have to know anybody anywhere.
But if you do know some folks that are investing in other markets, we would love to hear about them, because then somebody tips you off on like, hey, you guys should look at Columbus, Ohio, or whatever, whatever it is. I mean, there are things, I think about places similar to Salem, Oregon, Willamette Valley. So like Portland, Oregon for a period had a high growth expansion period, and now that's slowed down because of politics and things. Portland kind of got a black eye, but during it was kind of interesting because people sort of flooded into Oregon, primarily into Portland, and then Portland got a bad rep, and then everybody started sort of like spilling out of Portland. Mm-hmm. And so everything outside of Portland all of a sudden was really hot, and Portland proper was not. Well, there are other places that are very similar. Mm-hmm. You look at like probably like big places that are exploding: Denver, Colorado; Salt Lake City, Utah; Atlanta, Georgia; Nashville, Tennessee;
Austin,
Dallas, Texas; Austin, Texas. Places where they have seen explosive growth in their city centers. And there are people in those city centers that say, screw this, and they start to spill out into markets just outside, like tertiary, secondary markets. And you study that a little bit. You can go like, well, we don't necessarily want to go to Tennessee and buy a 4-cap, but if you go 30 minutes away from Tennessee, you can buy an 8-cap. Mm-hmm. And now if you can figure out where things are spilling over into. Now, as people move back into the city center and stuff, you run the risk of those people moving back in. But I believe that you look at some of the hotter markets around the U.S. and you don't go directly in to those markets, depending on the asset type.
So is your risk you pick a market and then population growth declines, you have higher vacancy, and now it doesn't?
Your laws could change. You could get there and realize there's something wrong with their building code. Your property manager could suck. You could maybe not find contractors. You're out of state, and so trying to manage your subs and your vendors and stuff like that, I think you're more apt to get screwed over and taken advantage of, because what I found is even just leaving and going 2.5-hour drive away to like Astoria was a good old boys club. And so we got there, and it's like, the people we were partnered with were trying to push stuff through, and the city would just sort of go like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. They'd just have a little poker night or whatever, and they'd shake hands and something would happen. And we took over the project, and we need to do something very simple. And they're like, nah, you can't do that. Mm-mm. Because we were not part of the good old boy club. So like it or not, like real estate's political. And if you're an outsider, you're more likely to get pushed back, more likely, especially if you're doing development or you're trying to work on pushing things through. That's one of the reasons why I don't work with any developers that are not politically connected. Like every developer I've partnered with has dinner with the mayor. Like, I mean, you got to know people at that level, or your project literally is going to get flushed down the toilet.
So to go there, I think we have to have the system of, which we're trying to do now, I guess, of contacting all the players, the brokers that we need.
What's
to
different about it?
Deals.
Different area code.
We don't do off market really well right now is the only thing. So it'd be taking that system and then finding the deals.
I don't even know if we need to do off market if we go elsewhere.
Yeah,
we still just do the broker.
Get a list of brokers nationwide, build a sexy email, and blast it. Mm-hmm. I mean, or whatever markets you want to go into. It's not that hard. Start making phone calls.
Okay.
Go interview, and we can fly into those markets, look around. So, all right. So what do we decide? Well, I decided we're going to other states. Now you guys got to help me decide how we're going to do it and what we're going to buy.
We just have to go do it. Yeah.
We're going to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to do it because we said we're going to do it.
Or we're not going to do it, and then we just told everyone we're going to do it.
No, we're going
to be losers.
That's not how it
if we don't do it, Trevor gets fired.
Cool.
I like that. Even split to stack.
All right, should we wrap this one up?
Yep.
Guys, if you're listening, thank you. We love you. We hope you're doing more deals because you're listening. Sometimes we just ramble on about crazy stuff, but we hope that our brainstorming session helps you brainstorm your portfolio and be thinking big. Think bigger than you're currently thinking about. Maybe bigger bigger project sizes or go into different markets or different asset types that you've looked at before. But always challenge yourself to grow, and this is truly a mindset game. You're only going to go as far as you can expand your mind. So keep learning, but make sure you're not just reading books and listening to podcasts and guys like us ramble on.
Yeah.
Go out and do deals.
And just know if Dane could do it, so could you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Please share us, and we will see you next time.